Welcome to this episode of Creatively Speaking, Season 2, Recipe for Success. In this episode, we delve into the fascinating world of book publicity with Andrea Burnett, lifestyle book publicity expert. Book publicity isn't just for the traditionally published author. As a self-published author, it is imperative to understand the possibilities for your book. I could literally talk to Andrea for days. She has an impressive traditional publishing background. She has an unwavering passion for books and helping authors, and has an even more impressive roster of clients on her resume. In this interview, we cover it all from understanding the nuances of book publicity, tips for authors to build an impactful online presence, to the role of social media in promoting books in this digital age. Whether you're a traditionally published, hybrid, or self-published author, tune into this episode jam-packed with Andrea's wisdom and insights to guide you through the book publicity process. So let's jump in. Hey, Andrea, welcome to the Creatively Speaking podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here with you. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and I'm really excited that you're doing a podcast.
I know. This is kind of surreal for me, but it's been a lot of fun, and I've actually gotten to connect with a lot of past colleagues, which has been really great. So I'm excited to have you on. So before we get too far into things, I'd love for you to give our audience just a little insight into who you are, what you do, and how you help people.
Sure, not a problem. So I have a boutique lifestyle nonfiction book publicity firm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been in publishing for 25 years. I actually started out, believe it or not, I got a fine arts degree in painting and drawing. So I've always been really attracted to all things creative. And then through happenstance found my way into marketing and then publicity, got into publishing. I'm a huge fan of books and beautiful, the kind of books that you guys design, of course. And so that just led me into the publishing world, and I never got out of it. So I've been in it for a long time, and I get to work with some really cool creative artists, designers, architects, the occasional children's book author, and publishers and independent authors all over the country, and some all over the world.
Oh, that's exciting. So you come from the traditional publishing background. So what kind of publishers have you worked for?
So I've been doing my own thing for about 15 years. And my job right before I started my own practice was the head of PR at Chronicle Books, which is a really beautiful book publishing company in the San Francisco area. And if you are a lover of publishing, then you probably know Chronicle Books. I've worked at different imprints of Simon & Schuster. I've worked for an art and design publisher called Traw Publishing, many different publishers in many different capacities, but always in the publicity and marketing area.
Got it. Yeah. Well, I mean, we were connected through Sally Eckes, and
Yes.
when she mentioned that you had worked for Chronicle in a past life, I was like, oh, I must speak with her because in my world, I've always loved Chronicle Books. I love them because they do everything. Like they do, lifestyle cooking. They do all the different in-betweens, lots of, beautiful illustrated books and stationery product. And so that's always been a dream, company of mine. So when she's mentioned that you used to work there, I had a feeling that we would have a lot of synergies in general, just because of you with that experience, and then also with what you do in your own business, and learning that you have a creative background. I feel like that also makes a lot of sense now. It really does bring in the love for creating and working with creatives on that side of the business as well.
Yeah. Believe it or not, my start in publishing was for a technology publishing company called Ziff Davis. And That was, a long, long time ago. I won't date myself, but a long time ago. And then that led me to a job at a company called IDG Books, which was the
Mm.
creators of the Dummies brand.
Yeah.
So, Macs for Dummies, PCs for Dummies, and then they exploded and did, sex for dummies and mahjong for dummies and you name it, yoga for dummies, all of the Dummies brand. And that company ended up, that was also in California, and that company ended up acquiring a number of different big brands like Betty Crocker, Webster's Dictionary, Frommer's Travel Guides. And so I got to work on a lot of different interesting brands while working at IDG. And when I left IDG, I got a couple of freelance gigs at other small tech publishers because I was in sort of that space. But I had always had the dream of working for Chronicle because the way they publish, the formats they do, I mean, they're the pinnacle
Yes,
I mean, I feel like they're the
I
pinnacle.
agree.
And so a friend of mine got a job there. She had also worked at IDG Books and she got a job at Chronicle and I was so envious and I thought, well, maybe one day. Well, when I left IDG, there was a consulting gig that I was invited to do at Chronicle for their PR department. And that kind of got my foot in the door. And then they ended up hiring me. I have to say, I would never have left Chronicle if it weren't for the fact that I had twins and I felt like I was, I would leave before they woke up and come home after they went to bed. And I was sort of like, why did I have these babies if I never get to see them?
Yeah.
So, like many working moms, I started my own business, and now I will say that because of my time at Chronicle and my experience working on that kind of product, I was able to, that was a door opener for me with other really fantastic publishing companies like 10 Speed and Artisan, Workman, all the
Yep.
like, sparkly, shiny, fun brands that
Yes.
make beautiful, visually engaging books.
Yeah, wow, that's so interesting. And it's nice to hear like the kind of path that you took to end up there. It's always um it's so I don't know, it lends into like different insights, I think, really, as to how you work and who you work with and the projects that end up kind of gravitating towards you as well, too, I think.
Yeah, I think what it offered for to me is almost like a way to see what I didn't want to work on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as a commitment to myself having my own publicity practice, I have decided I will only work on things that I'm passionate about and that I love. Because if you're not passionate about the book and you don't have like it doesn't spark joy for you or make you excited and feel more creative about promoting it, then what is the point? It just gets really, really like a slog. You know
Right.
what I mean? If you don't love it.
Yes.
So I've been, knock wood, very fortunate to work on some cool titles.
I feel the same, because it's like you spend all this time to create a business, even, you're right, and when you're spending so much time even in it now, even with older children at this point, you still want the work that you're working on to be fulfilling, and you don't want it just to fill a gap. So I can completely relate to that. But I'm wondering, how about if you tell the audience a little bit about what PR even means, and
Sure.
especially to an author in general.
I think the easiest way to break it down is, and most people in this industry will say the same thing, is marketing is paid coverage, right? Advertising, um, ad buys on, Instagram and Facebook. And then PR is earned media attention, where we go out and we pitch a story or something about you or your book. Or if you have a cookbook, we'll pitch recipes and content to the media. And then they then print that both, whether it's online, broadcast, podcasts, print. I think that's the easiest way to break it down.
Yeah. And so when, so you come from the traditional background, and now on my side, we're working with a lot of self-published authors. So is there like a different a way that you approach that type of work for a self-published author as opposed to a traditionally published author?
Not so much anymore, and here's why. When I was still at Chronicle, I was seeing that the company was publishing so many titles a season, and there were only so many publicists and marketers in the company that they were stretched to their limit, and they weren't able to give each author and each book the most robust support they could because they were limited on bandwidth and bodies, right? And budget. And so that said, I think a lot of authors were thinking, okay, I write this book and I get it traditionally published, and the in-house PR and marketing team is going to be able to do everything for me, right? Well, that's changed a lot. You don't get that white glove treatment that much anymore in a traditional publishing house. The same goes for hybrid and independent or self-published authors. You're going to still have to do the work on both sides. So don't be swayed by the notion of your traditional publishing house doing most of the heavy lifting and most of the work. The onus is on the author, really, to make all of that activity, marketing and PR activity, happen, whether they hire a freelance publicist like myself or a publicity consultant or a social media team. They're still going to have to manage the work. And I always say to clients, whether self-published or traditionally published, okay, yay, you did a book. Congratulations. Now the real work begins.
That is so true. I couldn't agree anymore. So I think so many people come to us even with kind of like, rose-colored glasses in a way.
Yeah.
Like they think that, it's kind of the build it and they will come. And that's not necessarily the case, even if you do have an audience. Like I know even from the traditional publishing side, I've worked on books for celebrity clients who haven't sold even a fraction of what some of our self-published clients have. And it's really interesting because that work has to be done no matter what. The publisher or any kind of independent agency, whether it's a hybrid or someone else, they have to do, the author has to do some work on their own to really get that reach that they're looking for to make those kind of sales.
Mm-hmm. I think what I advise most with both traditional and self-published authors is that start thinking about that content as you're creating it with a company like yours, Leanna. Start thinking about that content as useful campaign fodder or content for when the book is published, and really look at it with different eyes. Don't wait till the book is available to start, scrambling for
Like,
this
oh, I can
content.
fit it into this box and this box
Right.
and this box.
Start create a Google folder. I always say, create a Google folder, start populating it with, and this is going to be useful if you hire a publicist too, or a marketer, or even a social media marketer, to start having all that content organized. If you have an idea around something that's happening around a holiday or something that's in the political zeitgeist or whatever it is, start writing blog posts about it. You can always clean them up later, but get your thoughts and ideas and creativity and all of that put together in folders so that you have that at the ready when it comes time for the book to be published. So I call it getting PR ready, like putting that content together well in advance so you're not racing to get it done when it's time for the book to be available to the public.
Yeah. And we, when we're working with different clients, we try to talk to them too about, what's their voice for this book, and or what's the story, or what makes their book different than another book, because they all do have their own personal bent to whatever it is. Even if, like, we work with a lot of cookbook authors, so they may have the same exact recipes that are in there, but it's their story, or it's the way that they're presenting them, or some, like, one client might have a big family and she's preparing her recipes and for more mouths to feed, we'll say. But then there's others that are doing it for, let me help you to create your meal plan for the week so you don't have to do it later. But they have the same exact recipes, but they're presenting them different ways. So if that's how you are approaching it, just like you said, start collecting that content, those talking points, those blog posts that are really going to support that view that you have, because to come then to you're going to be ahead of the game, just knowing some things. I think also when we had talked at one point, it's even just knowing the different locations that you want to be seen. Like you may want visibility in a certain store or a certain television show or different channels. So it's understand, or in a magazine or something like that, or online magazine. But what are those? It's like starting to think about where you want to be seen as well.
You would be so surprised at how many people come to me and say, I'll say, what is your wish list? Where do you want to be? And they'll say, Oprah Magazine. And then I'll say, do you know Oprah Magazine doesn't exist anymore? Well, then I want to be on Oprah. Well, Oprah's not on anymore. She has her own network. She does her own thing. So my advice to all authors, no matter how you're getting published, is know the landscape, know the media landscape. Don't tell your publicist you want to be on the Today Show. Watch the Today Show. Watch the segments. What are they talking about? The thing that always surprises me also is how few authors actually will spend a day in a Barnes and Noble or their independent bookseller and look at the competition. What are other people doing? What are they writing about? What's their point of view? What's their perspective? Find the ones that you feel are most like-minded to yours, your product, your book, or whatever the format is. Go back to your desk and start looking to see, where did they get coverage? Where were they seen? What got the most the most feedback? What got the most comments? What was the most sparkly and shiny and exciting? And then start putting your own wish list together of where you'd like your book to be seen. Also, I think it's important. There's two things I want to say. One is, keep in mind that for many authors, especially in the self-published and hybrid published arena, are actually using their book as a calling card for their other business, right? Which is probably the best way to sell your book, is not to lead with the book, but to lead with the fact that you are an expert, a practitioner. I know I was listening to one of your other podcasts and you had like a nutritionist or someone who does something with health and wellness, correct? And that's someone who has a robust practice or a business or a brand. And the book is just to augment that and to sort of give you that kind of credibility, right? It's probably the most expensive calling card, but in the end, it will garner you more business for your traditional practice. And that's, I think I'm seeing more of that than ever before, that people are realizing that a book gives you cachet.
Yeah.
And it's just a reflection of the work that you're doing in the other part of your business.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. And even with that client that you were talking about, like from her, from that book that we self-published, I mean, she ended up getting a traditionally published deal from it, and she is still able to use that with her clients. So it also, just like you said, it becomes that business builder is kind of what we call them. So it's like this foundational element that you can build your business on. And it can work in so many different ways. If you go to an event, if you're on a podcast, if you're doing a webinar with somebody, like that product can be this other support to that person that wants to learn even more from you, no matter what it is. Yeah.
So true.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, at what point in the process should a self-publishing author connect with someone like you? So we're taking them through the design process. We're taking them from, the idea, the whole way to the final product. And within that, we are talking about, publicity, PR, finding somebody. Do you want that? Do you not want that? What's your plan? But at what stage do you think is the best for them to contact somebody like yourself?
So I typically like to get my next season books. So I've already I'm booked for fall and we are in June, right? So the books that are publishing in the fall, I'm maxed out. Like I'm not taking on any more clients. And most publicists like me are the same. So you want to get in there and start scouting for a publicist in your category. And I'll talk about that in a second. At least 6 months ahead of the pub date of the book. It's kind of like you want to do it in a really thoughtful way. Don't just say, do you know a book publicist? Start looking for a book publicist who is a specialist in your category, because contacts are everything in our world. And while we may pitch our clients' books to people in different journalism beats, like it may be gardening and entertainment and cooking, we may pitch across those beats. We still are specialists in the lifestyle space, or I am, right? There's specialists in fiction, there's specialists in memoir, there's specialists in mind, body, spirit, self-help. There's a lot of PR generalists out there. And I don't want to say beware of them, because there's some amazing generalist publicists, but I do think that it does give you that extra edge to work with someone who is specifically in your category. And the best way to do that is LinkedIn and Google. Just, start looking. And like I said, if you got a year before your book is going to hit the market, get started fast, make friends. It costs you absolutely nothing to connect with publicists, get to know them. And also, in the same way you have a relationship with your clients, which is really special. I've seen it. You've got a real strong connection. We want to make those strong connections too. I find that, which is why I like to work with like really great people, because this is like a relationship. You're building a relationship. It's like a marriage. Okay. And you want to make sure that whoever you're working with gets you, that you're a fit with them, that they get you and you get them.
Yeah, I agree too on that. And especially with our clients, we really want to help guide them in all of those decisions as well. And push them to quality people like yourself, who we know are going to take care of them in the way that they need to be taken care of. Because just like you said, that there's definitely generalists in any kind of service providing, but you want somebody who really, is, when you look at their website, you can see your book among their other books that they've worked on, like seeing that, or seeing different results that they have gotten for clients that you want for yourself. So that way, going in and starting that relationship, that they have the capabilities to do what you're dreaming of or what you have in mind, or they might be, showing you things that you couldn't even have thought of, and the opportunities are there with that person on the other side. So
don't just look at, I want to say this as a rule, that most publicists, I think I've even written a LinkedIn post about this or article about this, is almost all publicists who I know are terrible self-promoters. I always say we're the cobblers whose kids have no shoes. We're so the behind the scenes people who like promoting everybody else, that our sites and I love my website, by the way, but and our
I didn't do it, but I love it.
Thank you. I love yours too. I find that I have so little time to really promote my own business that I try and upload that. I love your idea of like, look and see what their titles are if they have the covers on their site. Does yours fit into it? But know also that might not be the most up-to-date reflection of the work that they're doing. And the best way to see that is look at their socials, look at their LinkedIn, look at the other channels in which they might be promoting, and you'll see the kind of books that, if they are in your family, you're going to see those books reflected on those channels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've even noticed, like, just like you said, to your point, they might not have their site updated, but I've even seen some that just have a running list of the projects that they're working, like that they have worked on, even just the titles alone. And it's nice because they might show the title, the publisher, and the year. And you can see, even if they are just keeping that updated, like the different types of products that they're working on, which I think is also valuable aside from seeing it visually, for sure.
I would
And
say that to a fault, I'm personally a very visual person, just, I know you are too. And I'm embarrassed to say I'm terrible with names and titles. So I might look at one of those writing lists and I feel like those are perfect for like memoir fiction,
yeah,
business books, because I might recognize the title. But if I see the cover, I'm like, oh yes, that cover. I love that cover. I'm kind of like, it's like book cover porn. I love looking
yeah,
at book covers. I'm sure you do too.
I
And I'm
do.
sure many of your clients do because you make beautiful book covers. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting too, because I think another way to kind of just find somebody for you, like I know that I see things. So like meaning like online, I might see, you know, something that's kind of coming through on this channel or this channel. Maybe it's LinkedIn, or maybe it's through some kind of, TV outlet or something. And I'm like, oh gosh, I wonder who's doing that. And a couple times it's happened where I've noticed it. Like, so I've seen a book in the wild, we'll say,
Mhm.
and then you will post about it, and I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. Who else would be repping this book because I'm seeing it, like, and I think that's the exciting side of it, is just the work that they get to do with someone like yourself, and then actually seeing some traction out there in the wild. But there's a lot of work behind the scenes to get it there.
I
um,
would say to your clients too, or any self-published authors or any authors, is really pay attention to what's out there. If you see something, just like you explained, if
yeah,
you see something in the wild and it feels very much on brand with what you're doing, get to know who that author is, reach out, make friends, start connecting with anything that you feel is in the same like family as your product. Because the more of those, the more of that outreach that you're doing preemptively to the pub date, the better it's going to be for you. Start thinking about like putting your wish list together of who would write a testimonial for my book, who could write a blurb, can I make friends with that person? And I will say, I say this to all my clients, LinkedIn is your best friend. I think people look at LinkedIn as a way to get work, but it is not just that. I liken it to like Instagram for adults. It's a way, I mean, I love Instagram too, but it's a way to sort of engage with whoever your audience might be. And also think about, is there anyone I could reach out to who potentially might invite me to do a talk, buy a bulk buy of my book when it publishes? Is there a workshop I could be doing? If you're a nutritionist, maybe there's a resort that's doing a lot of wellness programs. Is there someone there who I could make friends with? Who's organizing those events? Like, start doing your research. You really want to look at getting your book out there in the world in the same way you would if you were looking for a job, right? Get yourself out there, make connections. Don't just sit back and wait for all the magic to happen for you.
wow, those are really great ideas. And I think it also allows the author to kind of dream a little bit too with this. I
Yes.
mean, if you're putting all the time, effort, energy, money into creating this, what's out there that you can pitch this to, or where can it go? I think that those are really great ideas.
Yeah, along the other millions of homework assignments I often give soon to be published authors, the other is it does not hurt you to dream big. It does not hurt you to say, I want to be on the cover of the New York Times. It's okay to do that. But the other thing I will say is that know and trust that when you hire a publicist, those outlets, those top tier outlets, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journals, all of the, the T magazine, all of that stuff, that's on our wish list too. That we're going to always start from the top and work our way down, but do not ever discount the niche or super specific category media outlets, because let's say you're doing a book on reflexology, like your feet and reflexology. The New York Times would be a huge win, the well section or whatever, but also think about where's your market? What are they reading? I've seen book sales make a huge jump by one tweet from a person who is an expert in that category versus a whole segment on Good Morning America. You'd be shocked. Don't assume that the bigger and more lofty media outlets are the ones that are going to move the needle on sales. They don't always do that. And so you don't want to discount when your publicist says, oh, I got you a hit in reflexology.com. And you're like, but that's where your market is. They're looking for that information in that smaller outlet, and that might really push sales for you.
That's it. That's really insightful, because I think that's what we do is we discount some of these smaller outlets and we feel like it's not grand enough. But if it is that targeted audience that you are really hoping to market to, I mean, that's so valuable. You can't find, it's like, if you're looking, just like you said, for reflexology, you're not going to want to go to somebody who does hair and makeup. You want to make sure that you're in the right outlet to attract that person. You mentioned Twitter. And so that kind of brings me to like a question about like platform and platforms. And, platform's a big thing, especially when it comes to traditionally published authors. A lot of people don't get a book deal if they don't have this huge following, or at least a following that they know is going to buy. So when you're working with an author, how does platform or different social media outlets play into the way you work with them, or if you take them on? Or I'm just curious.
That's such a great question, and it comes up all the time. And you are absolutely spot on. There are very few traditional publishers who will even look at a proposal by an author without having first looked at their followers and what their numbers are. And they have their own, benchmarks of what those numbers are. I will, because I mostly work with visual projects, cookbooks and visual books. Instagram is number one. Like that is where you want no doubt, that is where you want to live and breathe. And you want to continue to build your following, and you want to engage, and you want the content to be fresh, and you want to be connecting with other people in that space. Facebook is kind of like older, kind of boomer space.
Different demographic there.
but it's okay. You can just, whatever, double post, where it goes to Instagram and Facebook. So don't even have to worry about it. Facebook is also really good for finding like-minded groups and posting events. So I wouldn't say don't ignore it, but you don't have to spend a lot of time there. For business books, I hate driving anything to Twitter right now because I'm mad at Twitter. And we don't need to go into the politics of that, but I think Twitter is where a lot of journalists are, and a lot of business people. So if you have a business book, then that's a good place to be. TikTok right now is all the rage. Like TikTok is everything. But TikTok is really big. I wouldn't say that TikTok isn't big for visual books, but I do think TikTok should be built into any publicity campaign right now, and you should start paying attention to it. A lot of my clients say, but I don't want to be on TikTok. Well, you don't have to be on TikTok. Just as long as you're pitching to TikTok and reaching out to TikTokers, you don't even have to have you can just be like scrolling through it and finding interesting things. Comment on, if there's a particular TikToker who is doing things in your category, comment, like their content, comment, look them up. Most all of the people on TikTok are also on another platform. Don't discount YouTube. Like if you have something powerful to say, if you're in a visual space, consider having a YouTube channel. And then, of course, I can't evangelize LinkedIn enough. So be
Mhm.
on LinkedIn, get active, post stories, post articles, start engaging with people on LinkedIn who you want to take notice of your book.
And do you think that's the same even for like cookbooks, since we're doing a lot of cookbooks? Do you think LinkedIn is still a really good platform? I feel like, and the reason why I'm asking is because I feel like a lot of our clients, a lot of them are food bloggers, they don't even have a LinkedIn account.
Mm-mm.
So like what so what do you think? What do you say to that? Get on LinkedIn?
So as a publicist, I say to every client, get on LinkedIn, tidy up your profile, because a lot of journalists who I pitch to are going to look at
I'm gonna
LinkedIn
go
and see
there.
if you are legit. Do you have a nutritional practice? Do you have psychology practices? How long have you been doing it? Are you a great source? Are you a great resource? It's kind of like the resume check, you know? Like it's a way to show your legitimacy in your category. And if you are on LinkedIn, you don't have to get fancy about it, but it's a great way to show, here's some content of a project I'm working on. Here's a little bit about me. Here's my pedigree. This is why I do what I do, why I wrote what I wrote, and do what I do. So just don't ignore it. Just, you got to get on there.
Gotta embrace it.
Yes, embrace it. It's not
Yeah.
scary.
I don't mind it. I mean, I feel like for me it's a totally different thing. So it is about the professional connection. So for me, in that, if I'm looking for a writer or if I'm looking for other publicists or anything like that, that's where I go, because you can find all these people on, in groups and this and that, but they're not like, you have to vet them in some way. So even on my side, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Um, so to all of my clients, you must get on LinkedIn and at least flesh out that profile for sure. So when a client works with you, how do you take them through the process? What does that look like?
So typically what I do is we have like a 20 to 30-minute consultation call to start. So they might reach out to me through my website, or they might reach out through word of mouth. And then we arrange a quick phone call, and that's usually on Zoom because, again, I'm very visual. I like to see who the person is, and also I'm looking at it with a publicist lens. I'm looking at them as potential candidate for me to pitch. I want to know how comfortable are they on camera? Do they have weird, um, you know, I mean this with love. Like, do they have weird behavioral tics?
Yeah.
Are they nervous? Are they, do I need to coach them on how to do better presentation? That just gives me a feel for who they are. And it also gives me a chance to sort of weed out if there's no compatibility, or if maybe I'm not the right fit for them. And then if they want to move forward, and I also feel like it's a good fit for me, the next step is I do a proposal. And the proposal is, don't ever work with a publicist who doesn't give you a proposal. That's all I have to say. And shop around. Like I said, it costs you nothing to shop around for a publicist. Make sure you get proposals so you can compare. And then if they don't have any questions and they think, yes, let's go, then I send them a letter of agreement. It's very comprehensive. An invoice. For every publicist works differently, but most publicists do work on retainer. So you pay up front for the work, and then we work off the retainer. And then, I send them a W-9, etc. And then the next step is, once we sign, I schedule an onboarding meeting, and that's usually an hour. And I prepare for that by creating sort of a homework assignments list. We start talking about the targets, how my process works, how I work. And then I personally live and breathe in Google folders. So I start building out their folder. It's an organic living document. We both can add to it. It's very transparent. They can see what I'm doing while I'm doing it. They can add ideas. And then, I will say that, I'm a big believer in documenting everything. So I don't like it when my clients text. I mean, I don't mind. They can text
Yeah.
me. It's like, hi, hello, how you doing? But I like everything organized in my emails, so I can, make sure I've got backup of everything,
Hmm.
and I don't lose track of stuff. And then we meet usually every 2 weeks or every month, and I give them regular updates. And I'm always available, like you probably, I'm always available for my clients if they have questions. But my whole philosophy is the more I'm talking about the work, the less I'm working. So let me just do my job and trust me, and let's stick with our regularly scheduled meetings, and then I will fill you in on all my activity. And again, they can always peek into the folders to see what I'm working on. um, it's collaborative, but it's also really important for your clients, your listeners, to know when you hire a publicist, please trust them. They usually know, if they've got 8 or more years of publicity experience, trust that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, and it probably takes, like you said, 6 months in advance trying to just, meet with the publicist and kind of, revving up towards that pub date. And it's going to take time too. I think that, just like you said, you have to trust the person that you've hired, but then also knowing that this isn't going to be oh, I sent out 3 emails and now we're done, like you're booked. Like it is this progression of, you know, priming your audience, your people, your contacts for who's coming, I guess, what's coming up.
And you can ask for a timeline if you want one. I can create a timeline for anyone, but usually I'm sort of all over the map. Like I might be, I'm a very nonlinear thinker, and I'm very nonlinear in the way I do PR. I might be like pitching you for a talk in 1 minute and pitching you for a feature article or an interview the next. So it's kind of all over the map. So a timeline doesn't necessarily, I don't necessarily stick to it. It might
Yeah.
not be like, this week I'm going to do this, and this week I'm going to do that. I might be doing all of those things simultaneously.
Yeah. And you just answered my next question, which is, what does it look like? What kind of things come in? And like, where can they show up? Like, where are you placing people? Like, what does that look like?
So for most of the books I work on, because they're very, visually content heavy and a lot of cookbooks, we're doing both proactive and reactive pitching in this seat. Like we might get pushed queries where a journalist from Parade magazine is looking to do, a Father's Day story, or I don't know when this is going to air, but they might be looking for something seasonal. And so I would reactively pitch your book to them. But I'm also creating my own target list, and I'm coming up with angles and hooks that are right for that media outlet. I'm looking, this is the other thing that your listeners would want to know, and your authors would want to know, is that we don't, a good publicist is not just writing a press release and blasting it out. It's not one for all, right? It's everybody gets a very specific pitch to their outlet. We're really focused on not pitching something that's just been done. We're always looking for a new angle, a new way to get you in front of that writer or editor. It's a very creative and also very by the seat of your pants kind of like, like in the moment kind of work. And so we often look to the author, because let's go back to your nutritionist author. You, as a nutritionist, if that is what you live and breathe and do all day, you're going to know what the trends are, what's going on, what people want to know about. You feed that information to us as a publicist. We can use that as a way to get you in front of, like, we might not know all the tiny little morsely particulars about what's going on in your industry. So we look to you for that help also. Don't think it's just one-sided and we're doing it all. You got to help us too.
Have you seen any like change, like since COVID, I guess, really, in terms of like placement, so in different outlets? Have you seen any change since then? Because I feel like everything has changed since then. So have you seen anything that's harder to get into, or something that's opened up that was a surprise that you hadn't considered or hadn't seen in the past?
I absolutely 110,000% have seen change. And since COVID too, there were a lot of people who got laid off in the public, the traditional media.
Mm-hmm.
And many have gone over to Substack, another channel that you want to pay
Oh,
attention
yeah.
to. That's a whole nother conversation. But I
Yeah.
would highly, if you've never heard of Substack and you don't know what it is, do your homework and check it out, because a lot of, really lofty, popular journalists have moved from big media outlets like New York Times and New Yorker over to Substack, where they get paid a fair rate to do what
Yeah.
they do best. And that's right, great work. So there's less media professionals and more authors. So you are competing, and that's another thing that many of my clients have to be educated around is you don't live in a silo. You're not the only cookbook author. There are hundreds, thousands of other people publishing a cookbook right when you're publishing it. So know that we are competing against all of those other publishers and authors who are promoting their book at the same time. So think about what, you said earlier in this conversation. What are the differentiators? Know your competition. Like I said, nothing wrong with sitting down in a Barnes and Noble or a bookstore and really getting a feel for the landscape and what's out there. Another really smart thing to do is two things. One is if you could just spend a little more time reading and exploring media outlets in general, so you're not like the one trick pony New York Times Oprah people, we really appreciate that. So you could say, hey, I just discovered this new online magazine that is akin to nationalgeographic.com, and I really love you to take a look at it because I think my book would fit in well there. A new media outlet, a new blog, a new writer is born every day, but the number of media, traditional media outlets and contacts within have shrunk.
So many changes, so
I
many
know,
changes.
I
But I think
know.
it does, I think it, like you said, like with Substack, I think it is opening up other opportunities, and
Yes,
it's just being open to seeing what they are and understanding what that could look like for you. I really believe that.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So if say a self-published author is actually working with like a hybrid publisher,
Mhm.
do you you're probably being hired separately from that, but then do you work with the publisher in that way if it is a hybrid, or is it just separate from the work that they're doing?
With hybrid publishers, the cost is usually on the author.
Right.
So where a traditional publisher might have an in-house PR and marketing team, maybe it's small, but they will have one, right?
Yeah.
And so with a hybrid publisher, you don't usually have that kind of publicity and marketing support. You might in certain areas like helping you place ads or giving you some best practices advice, but most of the hybrid publisher clients are hiring me on their
On
own.
their own. But
And
then do you talk to that publisher at all
yes,
about like their, yeah, like what their vision is for it?
yeah, I do. I make sure that I liaise with whoever the editor or the marketing lead or whoever the contact is there that the author's been working with. And I do team calls with them. I'm on those calls. But most publicists, book publicists, will liaise with the hybrid publisher or the traditional publisher to make sure that new media hits and new information, new events, whatever is shared with them. Because what many authors don't realize, whether they're hybrid or a hybrid publishers usually have distribution, and that's
Yeah.
everything, right?
Yeah.
It's really important, unless you've got a super, super robust platform.
Activated audience that's
Yeah.
ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've worked with clients, a couple
Yeah.
of which are
Mm-hmm.
yours, where they've got such a huge following that they don't really need distribution because they just hire a warehouse to do the fulfillment. And then
Yep.
but for those who have distributors, it is incumbent upon the publicist to share all media attention and upcoming media hits with the distributor and the hybrid publisher. So that will excite them around getting more
Yeah.
books sold. I do want to say one thing, Leanna, because this has been weighing really heavy on my mind lately. Um, know that if you are publishing a book, you are not going to make $1 million in a month. You are not going to sell 1 million books in a month. You are not going to, a great number would be 300. I mean,
Right.
I know that's really modest, but I cannot even, if I had $1 for every time someone said, I only sold X number of books, I'm not making my money back, right?
Right.
Oh my God, I'd be a gazillionaire because you gotta manage your expectations. Unless you have, like we said,
Yeah.
a very robust platform and you know that your loyal following is going to buy a book the minute you say hit go, right?
Yeah.
Most people are lucky if they sell, 3,000 copies
Yeah, it is.
in the book's lifetime.
It's not easy. And that
Nope.
is the other thing. Like as a self-publisher, they, they really need to do that pre-work of like priming their audience, asking their audience, or understanding like what that realistic expectation can be. What's also interesting is we've had clients come to us who were traditionally published, so they can see they already can see the demand for the type of product they're going to create, and they can, for them, it's a different view because they can see, okay, I did sell 10,000 copies through a publisher and I made like $1 per unit. And that's a realistic number from a traditional publisher. But then they know that if they put the effort into a second book, they have some data behind the fact that they know that they can sell even half of that is a win because they should hopefully make their money back. But it doesn't happen to everyone. And I think it's having that realistic expectation. And your audience is so important. And but then on top of it, I think it's doing all the work that you've been talking about, which is, making sure that you have a presence on LinkedIn, you have a presence here, you're doing the research of what outlets could work for the product, seeing where the market is oversaturated. If everyone has this type of cookbook, then maybe yours can be similar but different. Like, where kind of gap can you fill? But yeah, no, you're not going to Oprah can sell the books, all the Obama, like those are the easy ones, but that doesn't happen to everyone. And you're totally right to keep that expectation realistic. It really is that business builder. It's for other things, other parts of your business.
Right. It's a way to open a door for you for other things. And you know, I I don't think that I shouldn't say that there's that much difference between a traditional publisher and self. If you're both doing the same work to build your audience, to get engaged, to find, the right connections that can trumpet your book and be your champions, you're going to probably have the same results. And with a hybrid publisher, you're going to make more money because maybe you don't get the advance and you've had to make the investment, but you're going to get a higher royalty.
Right.
And you're going to have a lot more flexibility. You can kind of run your own show. You're not just waiting for someone at the traditional publisher to do it all for you. You have a little more like
control.
Yes.
And it's control. That's what our clients love. They don't want to figure out the process, but they want control of that end product. What does it look like?
Right.
And that's the beauty of what we can provide to them. But then on the other side, there's work that they're going to have to do, whether they're traditionally published, hybrid, or self-published. They've got to do the work to sell the book. And I know for us, we're always saying, they're like, when should I start talking about this? I'm like, you should talk about it now. Like, talk
yesterday.
About it. Yeah, like even before, talk. And the beauty again about the type of client we work with, they're on social media all the time. That people have no problem telling food bloggers what they like, what they don't like. They bitch and complain about all the things, why do you have ads? But at the same time, they're also saying, when am I going to see your cookbook? When are you going to have a cookbook? So they're seeing that demand, but there's still going to be work to do after, after the book is done. And so you have to build up that momentum even before. I had an interview last week with a different client, and she said she went back into her like DMs and stuff, and she realized that she started talking about her cookbook. I think it was like 52 weeks before she even contacted me or something. And that just got people, and then she led them through the process. So, she was talking about, would you want this recipe, and would you want, like, what kind of chapters are you thinking, and so she had them involved from the beginning. So when we did her pre-sale, I think she sold more than half of her inventory before we even sent it off to the printer. And then by the time she was ready, it was coming, like she sold out in like a heartbeat. So it's all about, putting that work in. And our clients, I feel like they're ready for it. They're ready to
Oh
do
my
the
God,
work.
I love that she did that. And oh my God, that is like the dream client because they're planting the seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the book could just be just a morsel of an idea in your head, but get out there and start talking about it. Plus, then you own that idea. Like you have
Yeah.
taken ownership of that idea, and you could start fleshing it out. And your following and the people you're engaged with on social can also start giving you ideas and concepts for content.
Yeah. I mean, she's already sold out two. She's on our third printing. So she's
Wow,
sold almost 10,000 copies, or a little
that's
over 10,000.
amazing.
And I don't think it's even been a year yet.
That's
So it's
amazing.
kind of, and that's on her own, which again, the beauty of the self-publishing piece is that it's not even technically published, because it's not living on Amazon. It's not living, and so I had even mentioned to her, I'm like, if you ever do want to go, further reach, talk to somebody like yourself, because the book it's got all of the data behind it as to how well it's selling without anything else. So could you imagine then putting PR behind it, and then pushing it out into the mainstream, as opposed to just selling it on your website. So
And
there's lots
someone
of
like that
options.
is a great client for a publicist because we can lead with that and
Mm-hmm.
say, never did an iota of PR and sold through
Yeah.
10,000 copies on her own. That's a success story right
Yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
people
No,
love
it's
that.
it's really impressive, to see what they're doing. And but this is a huge piece if they want to get, like I said, if they want to go mainstream, if they want to get their product out there to more people, they need to talk to someone like you.
And start thinking like after you finish your book and you're even while you're working on your book campaign, whether it's traditional or hybrid or self, whatever it is, start thinking about if this is working and it's going well and you're getting visibility, what's your next project?
Yeah.
What's the next thing? Because you don't want to finish out a book campaign, and that can be anywhere from 3 to 6 months from the from the pub date. The life of a book all depends on, like, is it event focused, is it a evergreen topic, it really makes a difference. But you don't want to all of a sudden have demand for, hey, could you do a journal to that book, and you don't even have your mind around it yet. You want to get started on thinking about what might be the next iteration of this, or what might next be my next book, and you want to
Yeah.
start
Kind of
writing
building
that
on
down.
that. That's
Yeah.
that's great advice as well, too. So is there a sweet spot of time like that publicity, like, you know, after 6 months, or, how does that go after that? Like, so after you do that initial publicity push, like what is the next thing in terms of ongoing publicity?
Well, you want to, so a lot of my clients I'll work with, maybe 2 or 3 months before the book publishes, just so I can start reaching out to the print magazines, because those are called long leads. They have a longer lead time to pitch stories. And then I might work with them through the entire month of the actual pub month. So if your
Okay.
book publishes in October, I'll be working with you July, August, September, and then maybe all of October, 3 to 6 months, 3 to 4 months. But some publicists work like for nothing less than 6 months. Anyway, we're all different. But the thing to think about is, um, that for many books, especially if they're evergreen, like if it's a Mexican cookbook that doesn't have a season, like maybe you want to capitalize on Cinco de Mayo or certain holidays, but that works any time of the year. Consider saving a little budget for the following year and maybe do a little bit more pitching. You are never going to, no, I shouldn't say never. That's not fair. It's very rare that a publicist can pitch a book that is old,
Old,
right?
right.
Because everybody in the media wants what's next,
Mhm.
right? What's new and what's next. But if you have great content, really quality content, I mean, I'm pitching recipes and content for books that I worked on 3 years ago because I often will go back to an
Mm.
author and say, hey, we wrapped a year ago, but I see a window of opportunity. Let's do a modified retainer. Let's spend a few hours for the next 3 months and really pitch. Like maybe I'm doing that now um, with a client that has a book on murals, which is fantastic. And it's summertime, and there's like maybe you want to paint, like zhuzh up your backyard, and you want to paint a mural, or maybe you want to. She designed these cornhole games,
Oh, fun. Yeah.
and so there's crafts. There's all these things that you can be pitching based on maybe a season or an event. And so maybe save a little budget money to repitch your book. But really, it's going to be on you to really get out there as the author after the campaign is over and keep evangelizing
And
your book.
keep going. Because,
Yeah.
once it's out there and once you've hit, past that time frame, you
Yeah.
don't want it to just fall off the face of the earth. You still want to have some momentum around it in
Right.
whatever way you can provide, for sure.
Right.
So I think one of my last questions is, I know you've been so wonderful, is just around timing. So what are like, so we have like usually three different, periods that, books are published. And I'm wondering, what is a good period for each part of it, like each of the, I'm drawing a blank on what we even used
Categories
to.
like topic area kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like and
Yeah,
with like
that's
with our fall, summer, like not summer, but fall and spring lists and things like that. What kind of books fit well where? That's what
so I that's such a great question, and it comes up a lot because a lot of times publishers will come to the publicist and go, what's the best month or season for
yeah.
this? So think anything in January is what we call New Year, New You. So self-improvement, self-help, nutrition, diet, that kind of a book, like organizing, because people spring clean, all of
Mhm.
those things that are like resolution based or a new way of thinking or doing things based. So that would be a book would be published January to, I would say, May. And then there's the summer months, which is great for beach reading, fiction.
Yeah.
And then also late summer is great for children's books because parents are
Back to
trying to find
school.
things for their kids to do. And
Yeah.
then you also have to think about all the institutional buyers are looking, and teachers,
Ah,
librarians are looking for children's books to stock in the libraries. And then of course, fall is holiday gift season. So anything that makes a great gift, a Obama memoir, Michelle
yeah.
Obama, and those kinds of um, fiction and nonfiction biography titles are great for fall, but also in my category, all things lifestyle. So cookbooks
Right.
are great gifts. Um, obviously art design, coffee table books are great holiday gifts. So that window is usually September to December. I find that I am recommending more of my clients that have big, beautiful gift books and coffee table books to publish in like late September and not October, November, December, because you are then pushing yourself. If you do, October, November, December, that's holiday gift guide season, but you are in a very crowded
It's so
market,
saturated. There's so much stuff
so
happening.
saturated,
Yeah.
lots of noise. So think about, if it's in September, you can still submit your book for holiday gift guides, but you're not in the most crowded space.
Right. And I think like even for some of our self-published authors, and going back to them, the food bloggers really, like they actually have like a unique positioning, I think, in that. Some of them, they all ask, when is the best time to publish a cookbook? And again, it goes back to that thought around, well, you don't want to you don't want to be right in the thick of it with everybody else, with the big cookbook of the year. Like that's hard to compete with.
Right.
But there are these other little windows of time that you're going to fit nicely in there because your people, and they're primed to buy. So as long as you're talking about it, and they have a little more flexibility, I guess, is what I'm going to say, with the time of the year. But like you said, like that, if you want it to be a holiday book, get it out before the holiday with plenty of time so that it doesn't compete with those bigger titles. If it is a New Year, New Year You book, I don't think you can miss that window. But there's other times though that if it's a regular, breakfast, lunch apps kind of content, you have a little more flexibility as to when you
You
can
do.
release
You have
it.
a lot of flexibility, and obviously, what it's going to be intuitive to you. If you're doing a summer grilling book, you should be publishing it right
You should
before
be
the summer,
publishing it
right when
before
all the
summer.
editors, right before the summer, right?
Yeah.
If you have, a holiday entertaining, then you're going to want to publish it in the fall. So, you use your intuition on that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there's certain ways to finesse the pub date so you're not in the most crowded space. And when you're working with traditional publishers, they make those decisions for you based on tracking sales that have worked for titles in the past and asking their sales reps and distributors the best window of time to publish.
Publish. Absolutely. Well, Andrea, it has been so amazing chatting with you. I know I've asked you a gazillion questions. I could probably ask you a gazillion more, but I'm wondering, is there any other advice that you feel that we haven't discussed yet that you want to put out there for self-published authors, to think about when they're trying to find somebody for PR or when they're working on their PR? I'd love to hear from you.
Well, we covered so much that I feel
Yeah,
like I got a lot of my advice in this conversation, and boy, I've really enjoyed it. I always love
I
talking to
know.
you. I would say have fun. This is supposed to be fun. It is work. It's hard work too, but enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. Experience it in the moment. We're here to help you. We will take care of the day-to-day stuff. If you have a publicist working with you, just soak it all enjoy it, and think creatively, think outside of the box. I think for me, that's my own sweet spot, is I don't do very traditional publicity. I always think of like very creative ways to get my authors in front of a new audience, and enjoy that part of the experience. Like, get creative, express your own creativity. I mean, even business writers can get creative. So yeah, have fun.
Have fun. I love
Have a
that advice.
blast.
I do because yeah, you can get so in your head about like what's the next piece and where does this need to go. But in the end, it really is your business. It's building your business and just enjoying the process as you go along.
There's one thing that we didn't talk about that I just want to squeeze in
Yeah.
really fast. I think the first question that often comes to up in a conversation in that first consultation is, how much does it cost to hire a publicist? So I just want to demystify that for
Oh,
your
that's
listeners.
that. Let's do
Um,
it. Yeah.
so of course, every publicist is different. You're going to get a different cost from everyone, but it's kind of around the same. Almost all of us, like I said, work on retainer, and you want to start saving so you have a budget to present to the publicist from the start. Like, wrap your head around what you want to spend. Don't just wait for us to tell you how much it is. It's going to cost you anywhere from, I'm just making this up, the low range, like $5,000 to $20,000, depending on what you want to do. And you definitely want to have that money set aside before you have to hire a publicist, because you don't want to get sticker shock when you get a
Right.
proposal. I personally, when I do those consultation calls, I can assess what the cost will probably be based on what they want to do, the client wants to do. So I can usually give them a ballpark of what's going to cost. But you want to try and have that budget set in advance, and it's not inexpensive. But the way I often advise clients on this, on the expenses, the cost of a full page 4-color ad in a traditional media outlet is far more than what it would cost you to hire a publicist. So if you want to get earned media, you're going to have to pay, but you're paying for the contacts, the expertise, and the hard work that goes into being a publicist.
Yeah. And just think about like that full page ad probably isn't going to get you, that's not going to get you the reach that you want anymore.
Well, it's gone tomorrow, and
Yeah.
traditional, media coverage lives in perpetuity
Yeah.
online, most of
Yeah,
it.
it does.
So,
It does. Well, thank you for bringing that up, because I'm sure that will be one of the questions that people will say to me after we release this episode is, well, how much does it cost?
comes up all
So,
the time, all the
but
time.
please tell everyone how they can reach you, where to find you, because if anyone cannot tell, I absolutely love the work that you do. I love
Oh,
passing my clients on to you because I know they're going to be taken care of, but I also know you can't take everyone. So it's also, get in early, people, because as you can tell, you're already booked up and it's booked in advance. So definitely let us know where they can find you.
and just a caveat for those who wait till the last minute, because it happens, right? There are many publicists out there who can take on clients. We also have attrition, so where we might have booked someone and held that space for them, sometimes they get dropped off, like they're not ready to publish or the pub date has moved. So we are able to add you to our chart, our docket. But yeah, you do want to try and get in earlier. So you can find me at AndreaBurnett.com, AndreaBurnett.com, to see and take a look around, see the kind of titles that we work on here. And then also, if you want to email me, Andrea at AndreaBurnett.com. It's like, I never email myself, so I can't remember. Andrea at AndreaBurnett.com. You can find that on the website. And then you can follow me at ABPR Lifestyle. And again, full disclosure, I am the cobbler whose kids have no shoes. So I do not work very hard to build up my own following. I just advise clients on how to build theirs.
No, I am under the same, I'm at the same place that you are, we'll just say. So we can design it for you, but don't
Yeah.
look at my social.
Yeah.
We try, we're getting better at it. The podcast is helping because it at least gives us some content. But thank you so much for your time. I know that you're busy, so I appreciate you taking time on a Friday. And I can't wait for this episode to air, because I know people are going to be so thrilled with the information that you shared.
Well, I am grateful and honored that you invited me, and I just love hanging out with you. So thank you. Thank you very much.